Juli and Adrian, welcome actually to the inaugural episode of Kicking Tables. This is our first episode in this new series in which we want to talk about Kickstarter games. And of course, you have a game on Kickstarter right now called Mantis Falls. And I am a backer of Mantis Falls. That's how I discovered it. So congratulations on being funded in under 2 hours, I believe it was.
Yeah, thank you.
So why don't you go ahead, tell us a little bit about yourself, tell us a bit about Mantis Falls, and like, what was the inspiration behind this game?
Should I go first?
Yeah.
Okay, so about ourselves, I'm Adrian, she's Juli, right? I guess our story basically is, from my perspective, I'd always wanted to do something creative. I'd always wanted an outlet for creativity. I started making music when I was a teenager. I wanted to do soundtrack composition. I went to film school, and then eventually transitioned to more, typical stuff. I ended up being a scientist. But it always was this thing of I constantly wanted to create something that felt real, and I create music a lot. But, I think a lot of people can relate to this, where I would make music and then share it with, 5 friends, and they would say, good job. And it always was sort of this like bittersweet thing of that I wanted to create things, but I didn't know how to make it feel important or substantive or meaningful to anybody other than myself, and I never really considered game design. It was about 5 years ago when Juli and I were in a long distance relationship at that time, and we wanted to figure out things we could do with each other, and we decided to play a lot of games together. And so what we would do is we would set up games that we could play over the internet. We'd set up a speakerphone so that we could talk while we were playing. And what became really obvious when we did that was that the only things we had to talk about was like, how's your day and stuff, because we were just making strategic moves on our phones, and there was nothing really to talk about related to the game while we were playing. And so it felt sort of like not really a social experience. And as we were going through that, we kept sort of trying game after game after game. And I kept sort of thinking like, well, shouldn't there be more things where it really matters that it's you and I playing, and we have a lot of things to talk about. And I kept looking, couldn't really quite find it. And then it sort of struck me that was actually like, sort of what I really wanted to create. And it was this sort of big moment of inspiration at that point of just sort of it started to shape in my head of what this thing could be. And then sort of had this idea of like, wow, maybe we could actually do this. Juli is an artist, right? Which was a happy coincidence for this. And I just started producing this thing in sort of a huge fit of creative output.
It was really impressive. So, from my perspective, he was finishing up his semester and coming home for 3 months. He's a professor, and the time between when he came up with this idea and when he had what is, I would say, pretty similar to what we currently have. I mean, there's been a lot of iterations. But it was maybe like a week, 2 weeks, something like that. And when people go through the game design process, we've talked with other designers, like they'll start with one game, it'll morph into a whole nother thing, then they'll scrap that, and they'll end up. And this was just like, it was like pure inspiration. And the first time that I got to play it, when he finally got home, I was blown away. I'd never played a game that had interaction like this, and it's what we had always wanted.
And how long was that development process? How long ago was that initial design?
5 years or so.
Wow.
About 4.5 years.
So it overtook me for a pretty good amount of time. And so the big thing was like, I didn't even really at this point know that there was this whole indie game design community and this whole sort of supportive network of people to relate to. I thought it was sort of this crazy thing of like, I didn't know anybody that had ever made a board game, and then suddenly I'm doing it and I don't know where it's going to go. But for me, initially the idea was like, we should have something where we're interacting and we're talking and we're engaging in things together. And then pretty quickly that it became clear that sort of the way to accomplish that would be that it's cooperative to some degree, where we're actually interacting with things together, but there's still this individual autonomy of you sort of have to protect yourself. You're not entirely sure what the other person is doing or thinking. And for me, it was in the span of a very short period of time after that where it struck me like that's the challenge. That's the tactical challenge that we face in life all the time, right? Is that you're facing things together but separately, and you can gain so much strength, and it's so necessary to do things with another person. But every time you do that, you're taking more of a chance, right? And when it sort of it started to feel very quickly for me like a actual sort of, creative expression, a creative outlet that shaped in that form, sort of an artistic form, in the span of a, crazy week or something, of it being the only thing I could think about. But then came all of the design challenges of how do you create a game that can work as a cooperative game sometimes, and how does that balance? And that meant 4 years of refining and play testing and revising and feeling out every possible way that the experience could go.
That's the secret benefit of a 2-player game, is that we could always play test. We didn't have to do an 8-player big game night to get it refined.
Yeah, well, see, that's the brilliance of Mantis Falls. Is this is a social deduction game, and most social deduction games, like the most famous one, Werewolf, requires 8, 10, 12 people to really make the game meaningful. Right, and I've played that game in a group of 12, and it's fantastic. But Tycko and I typically get together and we play games, and you can't play a social deduction game with 2 players. So, right off the bat, I applaud you for creating a social deduction game for 2 to 3 players. That is fantastic.
Early in our relationship, when we were both in school together, and I would have like friends over, we would play Resistance with like 8 or 10 of us, or something like that, right? And it wasn't my game, somebody else brought it. Adrian was there, and we were playing this, and both of us agreed, we're like, this is great. This is great. Really fun. I love the strategic decision making, the the kind of logic that you apply.
Yeah, the voting exactly.
Yeah, and so it seemed like a natural progression that we really loved the Hidden Traitor games, and then when we wanted something that was really immersive in the 2 of us, that made a lot of sense.
Right.
Yeah. It's hard to get that, like a 2-player game like that, without, really, missing the mark.
Yeah, well, and it was certainly an interesting challenge going through it, because it always felt potentially like a house of cards, right? Because no matter how much time we spent, no matter how many playthroughs we had that were positive, there was always the chance that what I was trying to build couldn't really work, right? Because there was no template to say like, oh, I just need to do this, or oh, I should read up on this thing. There were always sort of these elusive things of how do you balance it where it's still difficult for 2 witnesses, but still possible for it to be difficult for an assassin to undermine them. And it was a lot of just trying to sort of brainstorm and stuff. It's a weird thing that what became of my life, these past few years, is there was so many times where the only thing I wanted to do was just like, just go sit down and stare off into space, seemingly, doing nothing other than just trying to figure out, what new card I'm going to make and how I'm going to sort of seal this thing into exactly what we hoped it could be.
And what's neat about your mechanic in Mantis Falls is that there isn't necessarily an assassin. Right. If you're playing 2 players, now if you're playing 3 players, is there always going to be an assassin? No. So there could be 3 witnesses.
Yeah.
Okay, so
still possible that it's a cooperative game with 3 players. Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm going to get shot at no matter what. Every time we play one of these games where there's a possibility of a traitor, I'm accused first.
Absolutely.
Every single time.
Always.
And shot dead immediately. So
me too.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing that's maybe a little different than a lot of these ones is where the good guys, in this case, like the witnesses, they're not just responsible for like the success of the mission, they're responsible for the safety of the other witnesses, right? And so you're not just trying to like get to the end and stave off maybe somebody trying to undermine you. A lot of times you're actually having to go out of your way to protect somebody, even if you think they might be the assassin, right? Until you're sure.
So there is a sense of true cooperation where you need to protect each other. See, that's
played,
great.
I don't know if you've ever played Salem.
I haven't, no.
I've played that once.
Company. So they actually just did another facade games. Yeah, they just did another Kickstarter. They have the book shaped boxes. They're great.
Yeah.
So Salem is one that has you're trying to find the witch, right? But you can kill people through the process, and if you are not a witch, it really just doesn't matter if you kill somebody who is also not a witch. You can still have a win for your team. You can accidentally accuse somebody and kill them, and sort of like in Werewolf, right? You can kill them, but then as long as you eventually get the witch, you've won. And that makes for a really, really fun dynamic and a great party game. But at this like intimate level, it's that level of trust that you have to develop with another person. This is basically what prevents that witch hunt feeling, right? Like oh, it's him, and then everyone accuses, and then it all gets confused. There's not really a lot of that in Mantis Falls, and part of that's because of the cooperation that's necessary.
So why don't you give us sorry, go ahead, Adrian.
Oh, I was just going to say, it truly requires cooperation to succeed.
Can you give us a really quick rundown of the gameplay itself? How quickly can you talk about how the game plays out?
Yeah, I'll talk about it quickly. So, so you're set. The premise is assume you're the witness, right? So, say you're the witness. You are trying to escape Mantis Falls alive. You've seen something you need to get out, and you needed to move through these roads that are laid out in this modular arrangement on the board. So it's going to be different every time. And you've been told that another witness will join you. And together, you're responsible for each other's safety and success to make it out of town. And the caveat is, of course, unless maybe somebody got to this other witness first, and there's an assassin that's actually joining you. The nature of the game is so that every turn, you're moving one step closer to the end, if you choose to, as you're sort of moving through this road. And you both need to make it as witnesses to complete the game in a cooperative fashion. But the further you move down the road, the more dangerous it becomes, the more risk you take in terms of that you might hit ambushes, you might move out of the range of the ability to call for help if you need to. And then you face events every turn. But the mechanic is that a lot of times the person whose turn it is the only person who actually sees the event. But then it's usually something that needs to be negotiated with cooperatively in some way. But the other person is responsible for just making a move according to what you've explained to them about it. So that can be very precarious for them. And then the few mechanics that I really like in terms of how this all works is that all the plays are made face down. So all players have entire hands of action cards, which is this very diverse collection of cards and effects and abilities. And if you play within suit, you can potentially play a whole bunch of cards in a given turn. You can play as many cards as are of the same suit, but you make them all face down, place them out in front of you in a certain order. The other player does the same, so that you're both making your moves without knowing what the other person is doing. You then flip over your cards one by one and process them and see how you're able to negotiate this event, or maybe you're trying to heal yourself, or maybe you're moving further down the road. And then you resolve the event according to how you negotiated with it, basically. So that's basically the crux of it. It's built as a card game. The action deck and the diversity of the action deck is what makes the game different every time, really. There's other things that randomize it, but it's really that action deck. And it's also built around hand management and hand building, that basically there's a lot of other things going on. There's your health, there's the conditions that you have, there's the allies you might acquire, but really your greatest, most powerful asset is the preparation that you've put in to your hand, so that you're ready for anything that might come. And the trick is trying to figure out if you're preparing for maybe Mantis Falls itself, the hazards of the road are trying to kill you, or maybe it's the person.
So there is a sense of as you're moving, you should try to stick together. You don't want one person getting too far ahead.
So the great way that that moving forward works basically is that you get rewarded for kind of leading the way forward. You get powerful cards if you're the first person through the night, or if you're the first person to the end of the road. And so on the one hand, moving forward looks like a witnessy thing to do, right? Because you're trying to get to the end.
Right.
On the other hand, moving forward, if you move faster than the other person, looks as though you're trying to get those powerful cards first.
Okay, or get them killed.
Everything is designed to be double-edged, where that could be a very self-protective thing to do, or you might be preparing to betray me, right? Like, no matter what, you can kind of slice it both ways.
That's
and a lot
brilliant.
Of the decisions that you make, like what it really gets to, sort of the core of it, is like maybe you're both in the exact same spot and you're 4 roads away from the end, but the next step you take is going to be this terribly hazardous ambush, right? And for both of you individually, for neither of you does it make sense to be the first one to move forward, right? You'd always want that other person to harm themselves before you would harm yourself. But if you both make that decision, then you have no chance, right? And so you face those types of dilemmas all the time, where self-protection means one thing, working together means another. And then the real tension of the game is that it's always like the sort of the razor thin difference between which of those is the better move at any given time.
Now, how much of a dynamic change is there between a 2 and a 3 player game?
It's, I mean, in a lot of ways, the 2-player game will feel similar to the 3-player game. Like you're still working in rotating pairs. So you're still contending with events together, the two of you. You're still trying to cooperate with just one other person. The difference in the 3-player game is that third person, as it rotates, becomes the bystander. The bystander can't be harmed by events and can't be harmed by other players that turn, is not beholden to anything that happens in that turn. But there are cards that loop the bystander in. So, for example, there's one called Marionette, which if I play the Marionette and you're our third player, let's say you're our bystander, I flip over Marionette, you can put a card on the end of my action play as though I played it. So you could put on something that kills me. You could put on something that kills Adrian. You could put on something that heals me. So you can basically make me do something from afar. And there's other ones like Firestarter. Firestarter lets the bystander, if I play it, it lets the bystander choose either the event, me, or my other player is going to take 3 wounds, and you get to pick. So there's this, like, it's like you're stepping back, you're standing out of the way and going like, hey, I'm just a bystander, but then you also get to be like, that's the one that's going to get hurt right now, which I really like.
And that bystander role changes each round?
Yeah, every turn.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's always rotating pairs that are facing the events together. But tactically, the big difference is like in a 2-player game, say I draw a witness, then I know that I have a 50-50 chance that I'm either with a witness or an assassin. So maybe I'm just protecting myself. Maybe I'm also protecting the person I'm playing with. In a 3-player game, from the opening deal, you know for a fact that you're responsible sort of for the safety of at least one of these 2 people, more than just yourself. That there's a guarantee you have to sort of be concerned about the safety of one of these other people, but you don't know which one.
So there's a little bit more strategy involved in a 3-player game.
It's a very different kind of strategy. Instead of it, like, so for example, in a 2-player game, I'm sitting here trying to decide if Adrian's an assassin or not. And if I accidentally kill him thinking he is, then I lose the game too. But in a 3-player game, I have these 2 people. They both might be witnesses, and let's say one of them is getting pretty close to death. The other one might be saying, "But that's okay. That person's an assassin. I feel really confident about it," and I have to decide if I let that person die, if I don't help out, am I losing the game for myself? Am I winning the game? What about if both of them are close to death? Do I pick one?
Right.
Or do I have to save them both? So there's definitely it's a different style of strategy,
Sure.
and it definitely there's a lot more negotiation between the 3 of them.
And there's a consequence to killing a witness.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah,
Whereas other social deduction games, there's no consequence in killing the wrong person. Right?
Yeah.
The game just continues.
Yeah, they you can kill X number of people before we're really going to penalize you in those games. This one here, if you make the wrong choice, if you don't deduct properly, then you are really,
you're dead.
You've lost the game.
You've lost the game.
Exactly. So, I mean, to me, it feels a little like the term that people often use is semi-cooperative game. This feels distinctly different in some ways. The term we give it is it's a sometimes cooperative game, right? Because it truly is actually sometimes a cooperative game, and you really do need to face these things together and be protecting of one another. But you just don't know for sure that that's the case.
And unlike other cooperative games where somebody can, quarterback or alpha player or something, there's no opportunity for this because I'm not going to let him, take the lead if he thinks he knows the right call because he might be betraying me. Even the cooperative game, even if you are all witnesses, there's no possibility for it to become that like one person zones out and does their own thing and somebody else is really leading the way forward.
Oh yeah, we've had games where we've both been witnesses and we were completely cooperative the entire time. We both bought in and never gave any hint that we were anything other than cooperating. And then still that very last turn is very suspenseful and we're very secretive and we don't want to tell each other what we're playing and stuff because it's entirely possible that that's just one long con, and it feels that way every single time.
Yeah. Adrian tends to betray me on the very last turn.
Now, you went to Kickstarter almost a month ago. You have 9 days left, and it hit your goal in, was it 2 hours?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How did that feel? What were you expecting when you went live on Kickstarter?
Not that. The speed with which the numbers tick in real time and the speed with which they were increasing, I was like, well, this is like somebody recorded this, or like this is like a fake out. This is crazy. So it's really hard to gauge how much traction you've gotten on a project like this, especially because we've never done anything like it before. That was pretty crazy. That was very, very exciting and a little surreal.
Yeah.
A lot surreal, I would say.
This is your very first Kickstarter that you guys have ever done.
Yeah.
And we tried our best to take advice from other people and hopefully sort of hit the check boxes the way we were supposed to. Juli's done a ton of work finding like indie game reviewers and having our box, shipped all around the world and having just it as present as we possibly can. And we went to one convention, which was really positive for us. And every sort of checkbox that we were supposed to do, we did. But at the same time, we were still just, in the dark. And every time we ever would ask anybody new and say, we did this and this and this, are we good? They would say like, oh no, of course not. You have to do these other 3 things. Then we do that. And then we talk to somebody else and they say there's 3 other things.
They say like, make sure you have 1,000 more followers.
Right.
Make sure you have like 60 people willing to like scream about you on day one. And we're like, oh gosh, I don't know that we have that.
It was a weird thing going into it because it was like some people would say, oh my gosh, you're going to crush it. You're great. Don't worry about it. And other people would say like, oof, like maybe, by the end of the campaign you'll fund. And so we really went into it. I wasn't going to be surprised by either outcome, right? And if we had just scratched to eventually fund, I think that would have felt a little disappointing, but certainly not like an implausible outcome. And one we still would have been, we would have been still excited to just get the game out there and have people.
Well, one thing I love about your campaign is a lot of campaign. I've done a lot of Kickstarter, especially during the lockdown. I've backed probably more stuff than I should have, but. First of all, the thing that sold me on Mantis Falls immediately was cooperative and social deduction for 2 to 3 players. I'm in. But second was you don't have this huge long list of tiers. It's either you back the game to get it or you back the game as a vendor. And that's it. Yeah. And that's like I applaud you for that.
Other sort of like like you can get a special ally card made. We had originally intended that, like, we had friends and family who really wanted to support us and then wanted something special or commemorative, and so we were like, okay, yeah, we'll make you a special card or something. And a lot of people have actually really, I guess, enjoyed that. People are using it in all kinds of cool ways to commemorate loved ones or pets or which is really neat. But yeah, no, we kept it pretty simple.
To your point. Sorry if I cut you off, but really, especially the way we designed this game, it really was like a single card in that deck could make or break it, right? That's what we were working on all these years, was we wanted it to be exactly right. And so our feeling was that we didn't really have any need for deluxe things with additional cards and deluxe things with all this stuff. It was really like we made this game exactly the way we wanted it. We just wanted it to become as good as possible, and we wanted as many people as possible to get it, right? And so it was, we were considering all sorts of things, but for us, the idea of just sort of the cleanliness of like, this is our product, we hope you like it, felt like the sort of the purest way to put it out there.
Yeah. The visuals on it are absolutely stunning. That was one of the things actually that Sean and I had actually seen this at different times, and I actually saw it. And it caught my eye because of the visuals on the cards and on the box. So they're absolutely gorgeous. That drew me into look at this. Oh, this is super interesting.
Thanks.
And so that's what drew me right to looking at the actual I guess your preview page beforehand.
Yeah, Adrian did a lot of work on that. He doesn't have, I think, any formal training in graphic design, but he has a very good sort of instinct for how to lay things out. And I think it came together well.
Yeah, Juli did all the art, and then I just did the graphic design. Yeah,
so it was fantastic.
It was a cool opportunity for us to collaborate because we're in this partnership together. So it wasn't like sending something off to an artist trying to describe it and then waiting weeks and just living with what you get. It was a lot of us, being on 2 computers not that far apart, and she could make an art, I could put it in the card, we could go back and forth. It was, I think, a real advantage for us.
Yeah.
So the campaign is almost done. You've definitely hit your goal. You've unlocked most, like in fact, all of your stretch goals. There's one left to get the deluxe box at 120,000, and you're almost there.
We do have more.
You have plans for more? That's fine.
Yeah. I won't say what more, but yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, some of the upgrades the stretch goals you've added are great. You know, screen printing the meeples, that sort of thing, and even, you know, just all of those extra, the cloth bags, the cloth playboard, which is nice. So the nice thing about the game I was going to mention earlier is there is no actual board for this game. The board is created through cards. Mm-hmm. So that makes every playthrough different. Is that true?
Yeah, so that was from the very beginning. Adrian designed it to be incredibly replayable. I know that's a word that gets thrown out a lot, but all of the events, a lot of the events actually say like the health is your yellow number, your red number. So there's these stoplights on those cards, and we experimented with a lot of different ways to do this, but came up with the idea that each card on it would have its own stoplight, and so depending where you were on the road, that would determine how hard what you were dealing with was. And that's how it gets harder as you go later and later throughout the night, even though you're dealing with the same action deck. And so that it was sort of a lot of things coming together, but that worked really well. We also wanted to make it as easy to produce a game as possible, since this was our first ever project. Didn't want to like make it incredibly pricey or incredibly difficult to manufacture. Wanted to make it really portable. And then the big one is that we're very environmentally conscious, and we really wanted to make sure that we made something that was going to have the kind of minimum impact, as minimal an impact as possible.
Right, that's fantastic. Yeah, it says on your Kickstarter you're carbon neutral. It's a carbon neutral game, so that's fantastic. Now, is there anything else you want our viewers to know about the game? They can check you out at your website is distantrabbitgames.com.
Yeah.
And of course you're on Kickstarter now. You can look up Mantis Falls. Those links will be in the description below. What else do you want our viewers to know?
I mean, I would just say, you know, having this game has been basically like one of the defining aspects of our relationship for the last 5 years. We started working on it, I mean, not even a year into our relationship, and so that's been a big portion of it. But I would say that I think a lot of people think about it as a game of betrayal, and I think a lot of what Adrian said kind of gets to this point. But it's actually a game of trust.
Right.
And the cool thing, Adrian had this analogy for the game, but it's called the hedgehog's dilemma, which is like hedgehogs have to cuddle together for warmth. The more they do, the more protected they are from the cold, but then the more they risk that they're going to get injured by the ones beside them. And right. To me, I love betraying. Right, it's fun, and I like even being betrayed. It's a weird, fun aspect of our relationship, and our kids love games like that too. And but the thing that I really value, that's what I think makes this game so special to me, is that when we get an actually cooperative win, it took so much investment in our trust in each other and time to build up that trust to get to that point. And it feels different than winning another cooperative game. It feels like you actually did something truly unique and special in winning that game, that you were able to overcome not just the obstacles and fight things off together, but keep each other alive, and then even not kill each other. Like, you know.
Wow. Tycko, I'm really going to have to learn to trust you.
Yeah, we're going to have some real trouble when we play this.
Yeah, I mean, I think, to what Juli said, it's been interesting for me thinking about this as a game, like obviously for these years, but it really is like, when we look at our lives, it feels like so much of our life experience is defined by the times that we trusted somebody too much, right? And by the times that we trusted somebody too little. And tactically, that's something we all go through, and there's no algorithm to solve that. That's something that we always have to be on our toes about, and we always have to gauge and decide and figure out all the time. And bringing that sort of into this like dark metaphorical world of Mantis Falls was really like a real artistic release for us. And it's very gratifying and an honor, obviously, that anybody is considering playing it, that they're going to have it. Like the idea that people on other parts, around the world are going to bring this game out onto their living room table and experience that with people. It's just really, really gratifying, really an honor.
So you're hoping to get this out next year, May of 2021. What's next for Distant Rabbit Games after that? Do you have any idea? Are you looking to do another game after this, or?
Yeah. We have some ideas for expansions.
Oh, fantastic!
We have many different game ideas that are sort of in various levels of completeness. And our kids are actually really into game design too.
Oh, fantastic!
And so, our daughter has been workshopping in her mind this game. She's 11. She's got a really great idea, and so we've been spending a lot of time lately talking about that.
We've got a bunch of ideas. I mean, I think part of the exciting thing about where we are with this project is that we can shift our focus back to game design, because
right.
I kept spending my time working on other game projects, and then we'd have to have these sort of moments of like, what are we doing? Like, we still have Mantis Falls, just like, sitting here ready to do the hard work of actually getting it out into the world. So, I mean, like I said, it feels like a real something that we've really found together of wanting to create these things. So it's a lot of hope to do a lot more. And
will Mantis Falls be available in retail once it launches?
Yeah, so we have a lot of retail backers right now.
Okay, good.
And we're certainly hoping to branch out much more. We have a lot of friends, a lot of friendly local game store owners, because we travel a fair bit, that we've grown very attached to, and so we feel really like, one of the big dreams was to be able to get games and actually have them in a store somewhere that people can pick up when they're browsing. But also we want to, this is a good moment to be supporting local game stores.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So trying to work well with people there.
Well, Juli, Adrian, thank you so much for being on this episode of Kicking Tables. I'm really looking forward to Mantis Falls. I'm glad you were able to join us tonight, so I appreciate you coming on and speaking with us.
Yes,
thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having us.
Thank you. Take care.
Yeah.
Mantis Falls, a game of trust. Like life, a cooperative game that's only really cooperative. Sometimes.